Hello, everybody, and welcome to We Say Things, Episode 8, sponsored by Noble Chairs. SUNSfan here with syndereN. Greetings,
I'm
my
here again.
friend. Greetings.
It's me again.
Thanks.
Maybe you'll get someone else someday, but you're stuck with me for 8th week in a row.
I mean,
That's how
we're
it
due
goes.
to have a guest here pretty soon. I just, I asked Ice, this is not a lie. I asked Ice Frog to be a guest. He politely declined.
He said yes. Would you believe it?
One day we will get
Nobody
somebody
saw
of that
come.
stature. Yeah. As usual, you can find this audio and all that good stuff on Apple, Google, and Spotify. Before we get started, I do want to say one thing, Cinder. I forgot to even mention this to you. We are not doing this live on Twitch. This is a VOD that you're watching because syndereN is going somewhere. Where are you going, buddy?
I am going to cover the minor in the Star Ladder minor in Ukraine, and basically when this goes live on Twitch, or when this will be, we will still be showing it on Twitch with this pre-recording. I will be on a plane, I think, so that would make it a little bit difficult.
You can watch
to do.
yourself on the plane.
I could. I don't even know if I don't think I'll have internet access there in any possible way.
That's not a good flight.
That's a real bummer.
So
I love watching VODs of myself.
Yes, I know.
It's my favorite.
I've seen you. Let us know if this is something if you guys actually care about, because I'm going to try something different this time. Because we occasionally will have to record this like a day before or something like that, I'm going to actually release the audio right away once we're actually done recording. And then the VOD, aka the YouTube VOD, the Twitch live streaming or whatever you want to call it, will be 24 hours later. I just think that's probably the best way to do it, honestly. And if you're listening to this later on, like after it's actually released via YouTube, we may have missed a day's worth of news. We have no idea what's happening. If we're not talking about it, then that is why.
We do not know what's happening tomorrow. This is
correct.
Very true.
Would you like to read some reviews from this week?
Because we've got some great reviews this week.
You guys can review us on the Apple podcast thingy. Give us 5 stars. It helps us. And write something nice, and we'll give you a shout out.
So many 5 stars. All right, have we got something else than 5 stars that you're not showing to me, or is everyone giving it 5 stars?
It's all 5 stars.
Everyone, literally everyone. Okay,
literally,
like you're being very selective here. If there's a 4-star, you're like, nope, not good enough.
Well, they have to leave a comment for me to see.
That is true.
Yeah. So
all right, I'll read them bottom up, okay, and then I do the first 2, and you do the last 3.
Okay.
All right, so first one is called Good Show, 5 stars. I think when I think of 5 stars, I think excellent, not good. Good is like 3.5 or 4, right? But it's a different day. I'll take the stars.
Different age.
SUNSfan's laugh does something to me. I like it.
What was that young man's name, syndereN?
2637382 this.
That's my alt account.
Totally not. That is a throwaway when you do not want to be associated with your comment.
That's true.
I get it. I understand. You don't want anyone to see that. The other one, thank you, SUNSfan and syndereN, 5 stars by Jogden2. I first want to preface this review by saying that I've been a fan of you both since TI2 or so when I started getting into Dota 2. This podcast was especially interesting to me because I'm an American who was born and raised in China. Parenthesis, I'm Caucasian. I lived there from when I was born basically until I started college, so I've definitely had my fair share of interesting cultural experiences. Anyways, you guys have entertained me through many trips and drives. I love the mix of Dota and random tangents that this podcast provides. Hope syndereN can get over his fear of being submerged.
Wow.
Kappa smiley.
That's a well thought out review. I don't even know what to say. I'm not used to this.
This is too nice.
It is. Thank you.
This is okay. Scripted comment. Next.
All right.
Thank you, Jogden.
Dynamic Duo, 5 stars. This is from An Act of Dan. I paused the podcast just to write this review. Whether they are pandering for 5-star reviews or attacking today's existential crisis, there's no better duo. Now back to the podcast and syndereN. Thank you, friend. Also from Matt Damon 69420. Wow, those
absolutely not a throwaway either.
5 stars. It's called SUNSfan. This podcast should be named SUNSfan Doesn't Like to Be Disagreed With.
True.
You know, some people are actually I don't want to label people, syndereN. It's basically, I think it's mostly Europeans.
Right, okay.
And my girlfriend. Europeans and my girlfriend, they think I'm too mean to you.
Yeah.
But this is more of an American culture thing, though, right? Where you kind of you neg people. That's what they call it here. You kind of, if you're friends, you make fun of them. You know?
I don't think that's an American thing. I make fun of my friends too. Maybe we're just both assholes. Yeah,
You're Americanized via the interweb, though.
I think I've made fun of my friends for many years, but you make fun of your friends and they make fun of you, and you make fun with each other too. That's
Yes.
kind of how it goes.
And if I
I don't take any
disagree,
offense to anything you do. So.
if I disagree with something on syndereN, it's all in good fun, is what we're trying to say. Even if it may sound like I want to kill him, it's definitely not the case.
Okay. Yeah.
Last review this
I'm
week.
still here, so
Great stuff. 5 stars from Roy Donk. Great name. New to the Dota world and really enjoy you guys. syndereN really loves horses, huh?
that's I want to say that's a little bit of a misread. I think it's more Shannon who's got something going with the horses here. But
I do have a story about that, but it's just not interesting at all. So
yeah, well then it fits right
it.
into the show. So go on.
Now, if you guys are interested in the origin of the horse, then you're gonna have to ask it. I'm not just gonna add stuff to the timeline here.
All right, leave a 5-star review when you ask the question. Hey.
That's right.
Okay.
So let's get started. Do you want to talk about this new thing that I'm highlighting here for you, syndereN? That people
we can
see?
talk about it basically. So we were, based on feedback from you guys, a lot of people are asking, when is A to Z coming back? We were talking about, should we do it or not? Has it like run its course, or would it be fun? And right now we're talking about doing a variation, because SUNSfan has this thing going with AM Scepter, which is kind of his thing. And now that every hero has an Ags, we're thinking about replaying A to Z with Aghanims on every single hero. Like do a test run, see if it's something people find interesting or not, and then if it is something that people really like, we could play it all the way to the end, but kind of do a test run. I'm down to do that, but not right now. But we'll probably be. I'm guessing we'll be doing it soon. That's the plan.
So the idea, well, by a test run, we're saying maybe like 4 or 5 episodes, just to see if. I mean, in all honesty, guys, it comes down to how many views these videos get. So, but the idea behind the show,
we don't enjoy playing with each other. We strictly do it.
It's the worst. So A to Z, for people that haven't watched it before, we take a hero from each side of the alphabet, the A and the Z. We match them together. We dual lane with them. And what was our win percentage last time?
No, that was AZA. That was AZA. A to Z, we just played them alphabetically in pairs, right?
Okay.
And AZA, we bid them inverted.
All right, at this point, it doesn't matter. We can do it the other way. Whatever floats your boat. But the point is, we dual lane with it.
Dual lane challenge.
What was our win rate approximately? It was like 60-ish percent.
60%, I think. Yeah.
So it's the same as last time, except in order to get that point, not only do you have to win, we both have to have Aghanim Scepters on our hero by the end of the game. Okay?
Oh, I thought it was first item, like after boots and stick or something.
I mean, we want to get it relatively soon most of the time, but we don't have to throw the game. We can
work out the rules later if we want.
All right, so anyhow.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
But that's on the docket for now.
That is on the docket. 7.22c syndereN just came out as of when we're recording this.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of numbers, a lot of number changes. Yeah. I see Chen got a big change.
Yeah, this patch is a lot faster to go over than the last one. We covered 722, right? That was a big one.
Yes.
But in this one, everything is like specific hero tweaks, except Basilius getting +1 damage, which is like a minor thing. There isn't a lot of big stuff happening in this patch, but the big stuff that is happening, I'll just quickly go over, because I think there's like 3 big winners here. Or rather, not 3 big winners. There's 2 big losers and 1 big winner, I think. And the 2 big losers deserve it. In the last big tournament, we had ESL Birmingham. Chen and Io had ridiculously high pick and ban rates. The pros favor these heroes a lot and think they are like conceptually extremely powerful, and both of them got nerfed really hard. I'm not going to go over all the specific changes, but the reason that these heroes are getting the nerfs is not pub experience. This is competitive related for sure. Both heroes are getting hit pretty hard. And then I think it's like, I'm a bit on the fence here about how big of a winner he is here, but Tinker's talent changes are actually really good. He gets 150 GPM on level 15 instead of 30 movement speed, which is kind of useless for the hero anyway.
Yeah.
And his spell lifesteal talent on 15 is also increased if you want to take that one instead. And his March of the Machines talent on level 20 is also improved, in addition to March being improved on lower levels in terms of mana cost. So, I think that hero will see more play. And then finally, I'll do one honorable mention, I guess, which is Undying. He actually had a bug fix in this, which was a pretty big deal, because they changed the way Tombstone takes non-hero damage a couple of patches back, I think, but they didn't fix the values corresponding to that with the talent and with Soul Rip's healing on the tombstone. So basically, Undying's level 20 talent that gives the tombstone more health didn't work fully. It gave it like 3 health instead of 5. And now Soul Rip heals it fully. So if you guys play Undying, you should give it a go. It's probably going to be a lot better.
I
And in
mean,
addition to that, they
nobody
also
plays
buffed Soul
Undying
Rip.
though.
They made Soul Rip better because, like, let's be honest, the previous Soul Rip, right? On max level, it could heal based on up to 16 targets being in the AoE, which is how often does that happen that there's 16 units in a fight? It's not that common. So now they've lowered the max units by 2, but then they've increased the healing as well per unit. So it's just always better unless there's like 16 units where the old one could have maybe been slightly better. So just
You forgot to mention Underlord
really
also got 1 armor, so he's going to
True.
be played every game now. I think.
So did Invoker, right? And so did Treant.
Yes. Why would Treant need? Treant just seems like
Treant's armor is trash.
Yeah, but he has such high HP, right, if I'm not mistaken, and he's very elusive. I don't know. This hero's it's based on the changes that were made in 7.22. I feel like we should be seeing that here a little bit more, but
maybe a bit more.
We'll see. Okay, so that is the patch. A lot of numbers, nothing crazy. I think Chen got the biggest changes, but
he got hit hard, really hard. I think he might have been nerfed too hard. Actually, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Okay, so this is for the video people. I forgot to mention. Cinder, did you see what I'm wearing today?
Oh, the Sun's Nugget! Yay!
This would look really good on you, syndereN.
Would it?
Yeah.
Well, send me a free one then, because I sure as fuck ain't paying for it. Okay.
Yeah, can't play favorites.
Not even
here.
A laugh. You know it's real.
Can't play favorites, buddy. All right. So you and I were both participating in Twitch Rivals in a little different way. So Twitch Rivals, for those that don't know, they do it for every game. I actually went to the studio for Auto Chess a few weeks back, and I went the other day for Dota. And syndereN was playing in it, and I was casting it, if you want to call that casting. It was reverse captain's mode, which I have never cast before, actually. So I found that very intriguing. You guys got to draft teams. You were one of 8 captains, I believe, and you picked Zyori for some reason. What went wrong there?
He was second to last pick or something.
Third.
Don't tell him.
Third to last.
Third to last pick out of everyone.
You picked him before Lyrical. Lyrical's actually pretty good.
I think I checked their Dota buffs, and Andrew had higher MMR or something. But it might have been outdated. Maybe it's outdated. I don't know.
Wow.
I think he did pretty well, though. So no regrets, honestly. No regrets.
Good. What did you think of the tournament? Because Admiral Bulldog / BSJ were on the same team. They won the whole thing.
Yep.
You guys were close to actually making it to the finals, but I mean, it was a really quick tournament, but super high prize pool. $50K for like 5 games. That's insane.
Yeah, it was very, very good prize pool for this kind of fun mode. It was fun to play. I think it was great content. Like, we enjoyed streaming it, having people on, just talking about the game, chilling, playing. Obviously, it's a very different perspective when you play this kind of fun tournaments that are serious at the same time. My main criticism would be the format, right? But that's like the competitor in me that feels like, okay, if you have these like 3 best of ones and only one team goes through the group, there's a bit of like random element. Not excusing our luck or our loss to bad luck or anything. It's just we played the Bulldog team first game. They came in way better prepared for playing the mode. He just drafted way better than us, and then we super fast adapted and outpicked our opponents in the next 2 games. But then, well, you lost the first one, so now it's like playing best of 1 in Dota, right? Like, pros don't like best of 1s generally. They want best of 3s because they want to have that chance of adapting to the strategy the enemy throws at you. But you don't get that chance in the best of 1 format. So what I did like, though, that I want to mention quickly is, I've been kind of ranting about this in the past. I don't know if I have on this show, but about the prize pool structure in Dota in general, how top heavy it is. I think the kind of prize payout they had for this tournament was really refreshing to see, because every group stage match had high value, and the absolute most you could win as the winner of the tournament was $19,000 out of $50,000. So the first place prize was below 40%. And even just winning games in group stage, even if you were mathematically already knocked out, you had something serious to play for. Like, what's 3K out of 50K? Let me just do the math on this. You're playing for 6% of the prize pool in every game, which is, pretty reasonable. Like, that's a good amount when you have this few games. So I really liked that about it, that it wasn't just like winner takes 30K and second place takes 15 and third takes 5 or something like that, Like, I think it was way more up my alley in terms of how they reward players. Because
What did
you
you
make
think
content, you're
of
there, you're playing, you should be rewarded for being a part of it, right? So
what did
I
you
think that
think of
was
the
cool.
meta? Because when we were theorizing beforehand, theory crafting what people would do, I don't know exactly. I think we were like, okay, you got to do one of two things. I mean, this is the both extremes. You pick an all early game like support line, a very squishy, or you go give them all late game heroes. Because for those people that don't know, I guess we should have mentioned this. Reverse captain's draft essentially means you are picking the heroes for your opponent,
The other team. Yeah.
So I think we saw a couple of the games where people would pick the heavy support, but for the most part, and by far the most success was picking these extreme late game carries that just sucked for the laning stage essentially.
Yeah.
But it ends up being just those two lineups against each other. And whoever got the one hero that was flexible, like for example, you'd have Anti-Mage, Spectre, and all these really hard carries on the same team, and then you'd have to give up something, right? Like there was one game where they just randomly gave them Night Stalker, and that team crushed because they had, literally because they had Night Stalker.
That was fun. I
Was
liked
that your game?
I played Night Stalker in a game.
I don't think
I was like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, okay, let's go. We'll play.
Were
play
you
ball.
surprised by the meta at all?
Not at all. No, this is how it goes. I knew going into the tournament that the worst possible strategy you can get is just having a lot of carries, because Dota is a game of momentum, right? It builds up from start to finish, and if the players are good enough, they don't make enough mistakes that the carries get online. I think giving 5 supports away is a 15-minute GG against 5 carries if they're actually good. They will win all 3 lanes. They will buy team fight items, and then the carries can't fight at all. Like if you have a Mech Pipe Crimson Guard or whatever, you just go end the game. Like there's nothing they can do.
We actually cast a game where that did not happen. Actually, 5 supports got crushed by 5 carries.
That should not happen. So
right.
There might have been some serious mistakes made there. At least in my opinion, I don't see it. So yeah, I was not surprised. I've also had some previous experience playing reverse CM some years back. I think it was when the mode was new. There was like a fun tournament run at the time. And I remember it was similar. Like you would get outpicked in 1 or 2 games maybe by just not realizing what was stupidly bad, aka broken for the mode. And then once you realize what the really bad heroes are, everyone was just picking the bad carries, right? It was fun to see in this tournament how fast the meta developed. It was like after round 2, suddenly everybody knew what was garbage.
See, I'm actually thinking about contacting Twitch rivals and telling them that I don't think that format's good for future ones.
I pitched...
I think ability draft is the best by far. It's super
ability
fun.
draft is fun. ARDM is fun if it gets fixed. I think it's broken right now or something.
ARDM is fun. That's true.
But I did pitch a suggestion, but it was we got invited really short notice for this, just a couple of days before. But I did pitch a suggestion that I think we've talked about this before. Did we run a reverse CM event at any point?
No.
That there should be 1 of each stat per team. So you need 1 strength, 1 agility, and 1 end hero in both teams.
Okay.
And if you somehow fail in the draft, if you make a mistake and don't give them the right stats, you have to all chat what hero it is instead that you picked.
Very
you know,
elegant
mistakes
solution.
can happen, and you don't want to redo the whole draft from scratch, right?
Right.
You just remake AP. Because I think I had this feeling going in. I was like, these games have a tendency of either being really, really stompy and just relatively uninteresting, or being very slow and relatively uninteresting.
Yeah,
I think the games got better than I expected, actually, but still, there's a lot.
Well, that's the thing. I feel like a lot of it is because we haven't done that in so long, but it was all fresh. But I could see that becoming extremely old, just carries versus carries all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Going to be the only thing happening. So I would personally like ability draft as if you could balance it a bit, which that's a whole nother story.
The ability draft is so broken.
Well, ability draft, all you need to do is draft bodies before the skills. Then I think it's balanced. Because
I see.
The worst part of ability draft is getting clinks, which I get all the fucking time. I get clinks, the worst hero to get ability. Yeah, I could rant about that forever. It actually happens all the time. Anyway, that was Twitch Rivals. It was a lot of fun. I'm guessing you had fun as well.
That was good.
Good.
Yeah, I would love to be back. I think it was really well run. That's something we didn't talk about. In terms of like timing, it was pretty short notice, but the organization of the whole thing from start to finish when it was live was super smooth. They were there constantly, very quick at answering questions, very like just readily available, giving all the information, setting everything up super smooth. So that was very good.
Okay. All right. Next, the Collector's Cache came out. It came with 18 sets, which was a little bit less than what we thought. And I highly doubt they're doing a second one, because I was thinking about it some more and talking with Neil. wouldn't it be weird to release the next, because you ranked them 1 to 18. So now the next one, it's 19 to 36. Doesn't that take away from the chest that they weren't as highly rated by the community? You know what I mean? Just feels a little weird. But I did go back and look, and in the past for collector's cache, they've always done 2.
I mean, I could see that perspective, but at the same time, just the fact that they are 19 to 35 or whatever, let's say that doesn't make the sets bad. There were a lot of really good sets that didn't make it in just because the competition was so fierce.
Yeah.
And I think we wouldn't be having this conversation if they made this cache like 25 sets. Then we wouldn't be like, wow, why are the 19th to 25th in this cache, right? You'd just be like, oh, it's the top 25 they put in.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But now it's not. Now it's a separate cache for the quote unquote worst sets.
I know what you mean. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I would have to look at the like drop off in quality because I personally don't. You know, if I were to vote, probably out of these 18 sets that made it in, maybe I only liked 6 or 7 or 8 of them more than other sets. So the next batch won't be bad.
The wording that they came out with implied lightly that there would not be a second cache. I can't remember exactly what they said, but there was like a Tide Hunter set that was tied. It's like this will be out at some other time. So it just kind of implied that there wouldn't be a second cache, but who knows? I mean, the other thing to keep in mind, syndereN, is that the prize pool is going to crush last year already, right? They don't really need They don't really need to push content necessarily because you want to get it as close to last year as possible, but you need to beat it. The one set that I was really
now. I think what happens now is the next thing that comes out is Morokai, and then we'll see what that does for the development of the prize pool and for the community satisfaction with the battle pass, right? Because obviously it's one of the big deals about this is the community happy with it? Imagine they could have been like, oh, we're not putting in a collector's cache because the battle pass is sold enough. They would be like, why? We want a collector's cache. We get that every year. But you know, if the overall satisfaction with the product is really high and people are like, wow, this cache was really good, maybe you don't need a second one to appease people.
Was Morokai, did you need a certain level, or does that just come with the battle pass?
I think it comes with the battle pass, and then you get some bonus in it by having levels.
I feel like whatever they come out with the tiny set's going to do better than Morokai would. I mean, think about the fact that
I'm excited about that. Actually.
Tiny, they've not had a set for 4 or 5 years, right? Like, that's going to be the first thing in a long time. People are starved for tiny cosmetics right now.
And it's one of the more affordable items in the compendium, right? It's level 255. So,
yeah.
Relative to Axe, who's at 425, there's a pretty big difference. If you're like, I don't want all of them, then...
Was there any set in this cache that you particularly loved?
Let me check.
The one that stood out for me was the crocodile or alligator Slark. I absolutely love that. But then...
Oh, yeah, that one stood out to me, too. That's probably the headpiece I like the least out of the whole cache.
Are you serious?
So, yeah.
For real?
I don't like that. I don't like that.
Wow. That is...
I don't like it.
So you like it when it's not changed as drastically, because I love the drastic changes. It reminds me of...
No, I'm okay with drastic changes, honestly. I think it can be fun when something kind of crazy happens. I just don't like the look of the head. That's it. It's just personal, you know?
It's a crocodile. What do you mean you don't like crocodiles? Don't like alligators? You don't like Sobek? The black caiman?
I don't... How do I explain this? There's something about it. Maybe it's also like something as simple as like the color. You know, it feels a little bit out of place to me. I don't know.
All right, well, I'm going to finish my point.
Different, but yeah, go ahead.
So I really was excited to use that, and then I realized that it would take place my immortal headpiece, which I think is a rare, like an ultra rare.
Slark has a headpiece?
Yeah.
Immortal? I don't think I have that one.
So I'm like, that kind of brings me to the point where the cosmetics, they can only do so much. They need to try to focus on the parts that immortals don't exist for people like me that have all the immortals.
Okay. I don't have the immortal, but then again, it doesn't really matter because you're still playing Slark. So
yeah, that's true. That's definitely true. So no sets.
Nobody likes that hero. Okay, I guess my second least liked.
No, pick your favorite. What do you mean? You haven't even said one that you like.
No, I want to go over this too. Hey man, I'm also on this podcast. I get to say my opinion too.
All right, fine.
Okay.
Please, sorry.
I don't like the cowboy hat on PA. Okay, I'm sure you're gonna hate me for that too. I don't like it.
Oh.
I think the weapon and the armor is super cool. Okay, I really
Okay.
like it. I just again, it's a bit out of place. I don't know.
Who cares,
I personally,
syndereN?
I had no problem. Look, I had no problem with the Ursa.
What?
With with it
The
being
cowboy?
removed. No,
Oh,
I had
okay.
no problem with it being
I was
removed
gonna say.
because I feel like I love the cosmetics and I love the idea of the characters changing, but I still feel like they should. I have to me there's a difference between glance value and theme. Okay, I feel like the theme should still stick to what the hero is. What kind of fucking assassin wears a cowboy hat? Like seriously,
A
is this some
seriously
sort of
badass one.
is this an anime reference that I don't know or
All
something?
right. Well, the
Like,
good news for you, syndereN, even though I didn't get it, so it doesn't matter for me because it's a
mhm.
freaking really rare piece. The good news for you is it takes the place of the Arcana headpiece, so nobody's going to use it.
That's true. No, okay, you know what? I can give you the perfect example of a set that I really like that is very
Okay.
different. The Rubik one. I think that one's awesome. It fucking turns his head into
Okay.
stone, but I feel like this set for me the theme, this fits more with what the hero's like. He's like this mysterious kind of,
I mean, I'm not
this
disagreeing with you, but
mysterious
I
mage.
also
Oh,
don't care.
this is my opinion. Okay, that's
I
fine.
want Baby
All right.
Invoker in the game.
What is cool?
syndereN.
What is cool in this? The Invoker or the Rubik is obviously fantastic, but he's also the ultra rare. I have not got it.
Yes.
Apart from that, I really like I think the Grimstroke one is pretty cool. It's the first set
Yeah,
for
I
the
like
hero
that one.
too. I think it's a good introduction set for the hero. I really like the Dragon Knight set too. Actually,
Really?
the Scorched Amber one.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I like
Interesting
it a lot.
choice. I don't like the dragon
It's
form
like
on that set.
because I haven't looked too closely at the dragon actually, but just like again thematically for the hero, it's like combining nature and fire, right? That's a very good match for dragons.
Right.
So I like this thematically. This
I really like the turtle Tidehunter, and then I realized I would have to replace my awesome Tidehunter cosmetics, which I can't do.
Oh.
Like the shark head and the what is that thing that they have in BioShock? The underwater helmet thingy. I don't know what those are called. Whatever the Tidehunter thing. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. You can't replace those. They're too good. So I can't use any parts of these sets that I like. It makes me sad, But
yeah,
this is the world we live in.
well, that's first world problem, I think.
Yes,
right there.
Exactly.
But still, it's valid problem. I'm not going to take anything away from your problem.
Very valid. Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move on. I think that was a good enough.
Okay,
I think that's it for the cast for me.
Something interesting happened today, and if you're listening on, or if you're watching this, then it's a little later than today, but Underlords, Dota Underlords content was leaked onto the Auto Chess subreddit. Actually, not just the Auto Chess subreddit. It was on like every subreddit by the same person. Essentially shows some gameplay, the menus. It's all on mobile. The guy's phone. First of all, leaks. Although on some level, I can understand why people would disagree with this statement. Because I understand, like, if you haven't heard anything, it's great to see some stuff, right? I understand that. But leaking it is so, it really hurts the content creators that want to, like, I'm not in the beta or anything like that or whatever they're doing right now for Underlords. It hurts the chances of people getting in based on the fact that people are just willing to leak information,
Oh, that's one thing. That's from the user standpoint. That's from like our standpoint of wanting to play the game. But I think personally the much bigger problem is that when you leak stuff like this, that's in like alpha or early beta or whatever,
perception is created.
Generally it doesn't get people hyped, but this is not the end product, but it's like it reflects poorly, but that's not what, like every beta is like that. If you watch the early beta of Dota 2 and that got leaked, like let's say a year before TI1 came about, I think the community perception about how TI would be so different than what it ended up being, because it was pretty hype when it came out, right? It's just like when you look back and look at it, some of the early beta and alpha stuff in Dota 2, it looks like fucking placeholders, and it is, right? Yeah. So if you leak content like this and people are like, man, this looks like shit, well, guess what? He's recording it on a phone and it's an alpha or an early beta. This is not what the end game will look like.
So that's
but you risk that it kills hype. And that sucks.
No, the thing that really bothered me was first of all, it was on a phone, and the phone quality was fucking garbage. Like, is this a phone from like the 1990s? Like, holy shit, how can he not do better than 360p or whatever the resolution was? Horrible resolution.
Oh, I have an
And-
answer for this, actually.
Yes?
I do have. Oh, go on. You can go on first.
Well, not
I'll
only
explain.
low resolution, but he's on low quality apparently for the settings, and his commentary. Oh my god, kill me, dude! Like, I'm a negative person. That is the most negative person I've. He literally admits several times that he has never played auto chess, and then continues to shit on auto chess. Like, whatever. I just feel like that if somebody's gonna leak it, at least do it right. You know?
Did you watch it all the way to the end?
Yes. And then he
I did
added
not
that.
watch it all the way to the end, but I skipped to the end.
Okay.
This 100% looks like somebody who has an agenda. Like,
Yes. Oh,
it's one
for
thing
sure.
to leak. If you leak a game because you're like, oh man, I'm excited about this game and I want the world to see, and I know I'm not technically supposed to do that, but I'm so hyped and I want people to see it. That's one thing, okay? That's the like positive leak, if you will, where someone is excited and want to show people. This leak wasn't even a negative leak. It wasn't like, oh man, I'm disappointed by it. It seemed like literally this guy was targeting Valve and trying to prove a point. Like, this is what you guys used to say about your games. Look at this shit. I'm going to take your alpha game, put it on lowest settings, record it on a Nokia 3310, and then post it online so your game can look as bad as possible.
Right.
And then I'm going to blame it on you. Like, come on, dude. Really? You didn't even, if he didn't even play the game and wasn't a fan to begin with, first of all, like, how did he get access? That's one thing.
That's the thing that makes, that's the unfortunate thing. And he even admitted he said he started the tutorial 4 or 5 times and never actually finished it because he got bored. Like, it's a tutorial. Like, what is wrong with you?
It's a tutorial in an alpha. It's testing the concept, whether the game works or not. Like, okay. All right. Did he call it a beta, technically?
I mean, it says beta season in the text, which I'm going to read in a minute here.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so it's early beta, I think, still, though.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So the reason that I was talking about the whole, how do I put this? Because I understand that from a normal quote-unquote person, they wouldn't understand what I really mean. But I think you do, syndereN. The fact that something like this hurts, normal. Like Valve, their communication in general towards the public is really bad, right? That's been known for years. Their communication with people that do content is also quite bad. It might even be on the same level, believe it or not. The rare chance that people like us get to do stuff in things like Artifact was another example, not to bring up Artifact again. But
let's talk Artifact again.
That had a ton of leaks over and over again. And it ruins the relationship between what could be Valve and content creators working together to make something good, where now it's just, this is just shitting on that entire ideology.
And not only that, it might in the end ruin the quality of the end product because they are very cautious with beta testing and who they bring in, and they don't get a big enough sample size of different types of people that test their game and report different things back, right?
Right.
If you get really cautious because you're like, everybody's going to leak it, and now your betas go from having 1,000 users to 50, that will very likely affect the quality of the end product because you just don't have the same amount of data to work with. And Valve love working with data. They want people to test their game, because if there's one thing that is sacred from my experience to Valve, it is that the numbers speak for themselves. Like, they really are very data driven, which in their industry I think is very natural and a good business model to have, that you let data decide a lot. So what do you do if you have less data? Then it's less reliable and less precise, and that's just a shame. And then obviously from our perspective as content creators, right, you're absolutely right. I still would say that is secondary though, because in the end it's about, is the game good or not? Because if the game comes out and it's good, and let's say we didn't get to develop the relations like we talked about in the beta or whatever, if it's still a good game, we're going to make good content, okay? If the game is worth it, it will be fun and people will love it. But that's the bigger problem to me, is the risk that the title just ends up flopping because of stuff like this. Fortunately, in this case, I guess the concept is pretty fucking tested in Dota, right? With auto chess, at least. So
no, that's true. And we can talk about some of the similarities. Since this is public information now, we might as well talk about some of it. I will say the guy that leaked it also claimed that he never signed an NDA, which I can say I never signed an NDA for Artifact. Didn't stop me from doing anything, or from obviously I didn't leak anything, even though I didn't sign the NDA because I know the rules. But why not have people sign NDAs, syndereN? Nobody, you wouldn't leak if you signed an NDA. If you were under threat of, like, if you could get sued or whatever the ramifications are. I don't see a real reason not to have NDAs.
I'm not sure. I'm trying to think about it.
Well, while you think about it, we can show or we can talk about some of the text that we saw on the screen. So this, of course, was on the mobile. So I don't know what's. I mean, obviously nothing's going to be final, but the text at the welcome screen says beta season. Welcome to the beta season of Dota Underlords. With every new season, the selection of Underlords, heroes, synergies, and items will change. For the beta season, we're focusing on a core set of heroes, synergies, and items. And before we add the new category of Underlords to choose from. Thank you for joining us on this adventure. This will be an exciting time where the team will be constantly updating with new features until we get to 1.0 and launch Season 1. So that sounds interesting, the fact that they're going to be... It sounds like they'll change a lot eventually.
Maybe it'll have similar balancing and patching to what they do in Dota, right? Where something runs for, let's say, a month, 2 months, it gets figured out what is strong, and then they mix it up again and throw in new stuff and rebalance and tweak. Which is a very different approach, to be fair, than what Artifact had, where the game barely got patched for half a year or a year. They made almost zero changes in game design in that game with patching. So this looks like, I don't know if we should take this as they learned from that experience, because there's not necessarily anything wrong with not patching for months if the game is really well balanced, but that's extremely difficult to do with the level of complexity that these games have to make it really balanced. So I think this is a healthy sign. It sounds like they're committed to being active with it, which
it sounds...
Current big titles have a lot of patches in general. So
it sounds less about patches, or it sounds less like that to me, and more that you'll have, let's say every hero is available to use for this game. Seasons will have a select number that you can use.
Oh, so I mean they take like an array.
They rotate.
This month, these 20 heroes are playable. Next month, these 20 heroes. Possibly
Again,
that could be too.
I'm not saying that's how I read this though. That's like when it says with every new season, the selection of Underlords, heroes, synergies, and items will change. That's what that means to me.
The selection will change. Yeah. True. But that doesn't mean, it could change in terms of being expanded, right? You could still have the old ones and there's more items. It's up to interpretation.
Anyway, we can talk about a couple of the heroes that are different, or additions, I suppose, versus auto chess. For the tier 1, we got Warlock and Bloodseeker. Tier 2, we have Pudge. And tier 3, we have Arc Warden. Those are the 4 heroes that were different than what we're used to seeing. I can't imagine. What would Pudge has to be Hook? But how do you do Hook? I don't think you can do Hook, right?
He could also have Rot, right?
Yeah, Rot, it just feels like it's super short. I mean, yeah, Rot could be okay, actually. But then you're hurting yourself. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, you tweak the numbers, right?
Yeah. Some interesting things that was shown in the leaked video, profiles of and the stats for each hero. You can see them easily. Obviously, you talked about the tutorial. A lot of information, like you look at the creeps, like what rounds they come up. And there's a lot of new items. I didn't write them all down, but I want to talk about a couple. So for tier 1 item, Boots of Speed gives you 100% move speed. And the thing that I noticed from the battle, or the fighting, units don't hop around like they do in auto. They actually just walk.
Why do they hop around in auto chess?
I don't know. I always thought the same thing. Yeah, I don't know.
I think this is super fine. It just seems smoother to me.
And then a tier 5. I think that's a good change. Yeah, tier 5 item called the Recruiter. The tier 5, I guess, is the highest, I believe. The first reroll each round is free. That sounds super cool.
When do you get tier 5 items usually? Let's say they kept the design. Like level 35, 40, maybe? Is
probably
it that late? 30?
It's in that range. I'm not sure offhand. But
so that's still pretty good. You might have this for like 10 to 15 rounds before the game ends if it's similar to auto chess, maybe.
But the idea of having an item like this is kind of crazy, right? I really like that idea.
It's as it often is with things like this. It's like something sounds super cool, but then you need to hold it up against what it isn't, right? Let's say you have this instead of a sacred relic. How good is it then, Sure. Or is it instead of a demon edge, right?
We can...
Because it's dropping instead of another item. We're assuming. Right?
Well, we'll get to that in a second, actually. So let's talk about this first, because I want to talk about the item system last.
Oh, true. Yeah, you're right.
So classes and species, we saw some renames, which is interesting, which I want to talk about this with you in a second. But Ogre Magi and Warlock are the same. They're called Bloodbound. Orcs are known as Brawny, and Dwarves are Deadeyes. Is this more about like are these Warcraft names? Like the dwarf
No.
orcs? Is that Warcraft? That's Warcraft, right? Orc? That's not Dota. Like in the Dota 2 lore, does it say anything about orcs? I don't think so.
Oh, you mean that? No. I don't think we have a single orc.
Okay. So it never
And
really registered in my
Sniper's a
mind.
dwarf in Dota 1, but in Dota 2 he is a, what are they called?
Oh yeah, what is that called? Keenfolk?
Damn. Keenfolk, yes. And then the orc thing, there's like, we have a thing called Oglodi, right? Or
Yeah,
Oglodi,
Oglodi.
however you pronounce it.
Yeah,
Oglodi.
yeah.
I don't think we have orcs. So I think they're just thematically changing this to be something more
Okay.
Dota-like, I guess.
Yeah, makes sense.
That's it.
Okay.
I don't know if there's much else.
The other thing, and again, this is on mobile, this is on low quality, the art style. I don't know if it's just this video. Did you notice anything about it? It looked, and I'm personally not a fan. This is the one thing I didn't like. It felt like it was the heroes were Borderland heroes, or like even League of Legends kind of. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they were a little bit, how to say?
I don't know how to explain it. They pop out. They're like paper mache almost.
Yeah, I think that might be. I'm gonna give it there will be a PC version for this, right? There's mobile and PC.
I assume.
I think they said. Did he say that, the guy in the clip? I'm not sure. Anyway,
I mean, I'd be shocked if there wasn't, because they're replacing auto chess, right?
yeah,
So.
it really should be, right? So I think in the mobile version you have some limitations in terms of how high quality you can render models and stuff. So maybe it's just to make it easier to see things on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
And in the version he has, and on top of that has low quality and bad recording, like maybe it doesn't do it justice. And again, it's an early beta.
Yeah.
So the models might just be implemented in a way that makes it easy for them to track interactions and track certain things that they're testing. So I wouldn't think about it too much, but I do think in the end, the art style on the mobile version will not look as cool as the PC version or as Dota does, because I just think it's unrealistic to run that if you have a multiplayer game with 8 players on a mobile phone with all of those details. I feel like the game is going to lag, and your first priority is that the gameplay should be smooth, right? So,
I mean, you can play PUBG on the phone these days. Is that really a thing, though? I don't know how the graphics look. The graphics.
I mean, maybe.
People say it's
feel
smoother
like the
than
Dota
PC
renders.
even.
The Dota renders are pretty high quality, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Aren't they?
But PUBG is
although Dota is
large
generally a CPU game rather than a graphics card game. I don't know enough about this to make a
this
clear
is all
statement. I'm
speculation.
not an expert.
Yeah. All right. So the final thing that we saw, which is the most interesting by far, because we talked about how much we hated the item system in auto chess. It's the one thing that we both agree is god awful in auto chess. So in this game, based on what we saw, when after a creep round, 3 items pop up, and you choose which item to hold or to receive.
Thank God.
That is way better, right? Way better.
That is so much better already.
Yeah.
Is it the best? I don't know. Is it better? Yes.
100%
It's much
better. Yeah.
From our perspective.
Yes. Okay. That is it.
If you're there for a lot of fun and just casual, let's go, let's hope I get the purple drop round 1, then not so good, I guess. I suppose this also means that they do really strict tiering of items, right? And they might change the tiers. I feel like in auto chess, all of the items that drop in the first tier are not equal in strength, right? It's one thing that they do different things, but there's just some that are just objectively better than others.
Like Ring of Health and Mana.
The Perseverance that you can get super early is,
Do you mean the double Perseverance that I got at round 3 and got a refresher? Round 3?
For example, yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Anyway.
Okay. All right, moving on. This is kind of different content than we're used to doing, actually. I'm interested to see how people react. I want to talk about Google Stadia, because they came out with a little thing a few days ago. I should mention that...
We've talked about it before, right?
Yes. We've talked about it briefly. Okay. I should say E3, as of this recording, the first day is over. By the time you guys watch this on YouTube, it'll be 2 days. But we're not going to talk about E3 until next week, because I figured we'd just let it settle and then talk about that as a whole. But Google Stadia is interesting because it's cloud computing. Essentially, you can play games from your computer, the browser using Chromecast or your Pixel 3 phone, but you don't need the processing power. You play from a server that Google has where their hardware is ridiculous, right? So this service launches November, and it will have 31 games. The Founder Edition is $130, which comes with the starter kit, which is a Chromecast Ultra, limited edition controller, 3 months of Pro service, which we'll get to in a second, and it allows you to do 4K, 60 FPS, and it gives you discounts to some games. So that is the Founders Edition. There's going to be a free tier later in 2020 that allows you to do 1080p, 60 FPS. Essentially, think of it kind of, it's not quite like Netflix because you have to still buy the games, but think of it like you pay $10 a month for this service, and you can play on whatever device, essentially. You still buy your games. Is this something you would ever... I don't feel like we would ever use something like this, right? This is for a different demographic. Because I love building my computer. Like this would essentially replace that.
It kind of depends on, I would say, hardware limitation. So, for example, I have games that I play on the Switch, right? And that I love playing on the Switch. And there are plenty of games that don't have a PC release version. And if I want to stream them, for example, there's a game coming out later this year that I'm excited to play, which is not coming for PC until next year. With something like this, maybe I could be interested in playing it on the Stadia just to have 4K streaming from a console,
I didn't even think
right?
of that. Wow.
Because I can do that, right?
Huh.
I think that's interesting, at least. From strictly playing it yourself, for example, we have Dark Souls on the Switch, and there are areas in that game that, it still doesn't run very nice, smooth 60 FPS the whole time. So again, that could be a benefit in that, in the strictly the processing power of that. From a computer perspective, I'm not as sold on it. I don't think this is something I would be using much because my computer can run the games that I want to play. And if I were to run into trouble with it, I think I would upgrade my computer rather than get this service, because I would want to have a computer that can play the games I have. So
that's very interesting, though, because I did not think about playing stuff that's not available on PC, potentially being able to stream that stuff. That makes a lot more sense for what we do. But I feel like, generally speaking, this is not for us anyway, though, right? This is a completely different demographic, I feel like.
I would say largely, and I think the big winners of this, arguably, depending on pricing and stuff, I feel like the big winners are players from areas where it's harder to afford really high-end gear, like a really strong computer or whatever. And we talked about last time the potential maybe for what are they called? I think they call them PC bangs in Korea or whatever, but these like LAN cafes, basically. LAN cafes where people get together and play, to be able to play all sorts of games in super high resolution together and stuff, and really enjoy it. I think the social aspect of this from a LAN cafe perspective is really interesting, and I really think they should try to, monetize this, take advantage of the possibilities they would have with it. So I think those are the bigger winners.
The notable games for Stadia, which again, if you guys didn't listen to a previous podcast, is the worst name possible. It's fucking horrible. God help me, that's such a bad name. Destiny 2 you'll get with the subscription service for free. And then other games, I think you still have to buy these games. I'm not 100% sure. I think you still buy them, but NBA 2K, Borderlands 3, Mortal Kombat 11, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, etc. So there's a bunch of games. But the biggest thing, and we're probably going to talk about this more next week because I'm sure there's more announcements at E3. Microsoft, Sony, Amazon, and Verizon are trying to do similar things, which is very interesting. Everybody feels like they're just piling onto this next-gen idea and hoping it's not like 3D glasses where they're worthless. 3D monitors, horrible.
But horrible Steam tech. Is not?
Steam is not what?
Trying to do this?
I mean, don't they
as
kind
far
of
as we
already?
Know.
That,
or what?
Kind of, isn't that what Steam Link is? Kind of. You don't pay a service; it's free.
Does Steam Link take the whole processing power to Steam as well?
No, it's your computer, but you can do it from other so you can use, like we talked about this.
Yeah, so it's still your hardware. So that's the big difference, right? Is that the computing power? Okay.
Yeah. So I don't think they'll be doing it, but who knows?
Okay. I'm just thinking about these notable games. Are any of these games not on a console version? Do you know that?
No, I think
all of these games exist on console, right?
Yeah.
Or does Borderlands have a console version? It does. I think it does.
I'm trying to think. I don't know if they have any. They have some exclusives, but they're nothing big. There's nothing big.
I'm not much of a console player. I'm just thinking again from the perspective of what we were talking about, how this makes sense. It's interesting if all of the notable games are games that already exist on console and PC, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're trying to bring in both markets on this, and it looks like they are. I could be wrong here, but I feel like all of these games have a console version.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
So that's just an interesting topic I thought we'd discuss, and who knows if it ends up being anything, or it could crash and burn like the next thing we're talking about. So Blizzard, they canceled a Starcraft 2 FPS apparently in favor of Overwatch 2 and Diablo 4. The code name.
So
go ahead.
So this StarCraft 2 FPS.
Yeah.
Did they ever announce that they were doing that,
No.
or did they just announce that they canceled the project?
I think it was leaked that it was canceled.
I gotcha. Okay, I feel like that was a really weird announcement to make. Hey guys, we hear you loud and clear. You want Diablo 4, so what we've chosen to is cancel this thing that you never knew about. We just want to let you know. Okay.
Well, I feel like there was StarCraft Ghost a long time ago. That was more hyped. Then it was canceled.
I remember that.
But anyway, the code name for StarCraft 2 FPS apparently was Ares. And this is a quote from an article I read. The team had built prototypes in which the player, as a Terran Marine, could gun down Zerg aliens. That sounds awesome, by the way. And there were plans to experiment with playable Zerg as well. That makes me kind of question the idea as a whole that you didn't have all three races to begin with. Are they called races?
I don't know about that. Yeah,
really?
I think they do. Or factions? I don't know. Don't they call them races in StarCraft?
I think so. But anyway, I figured you'd be able to play all three. Like the fact that it's experimental, you're playing Zerg. Isn't that the whole point? That would sound really cool to play a freaking Zergling. You know, I don't know how you do
Zergling
FPS
Marine.
StarCraft. Yeah. Anyway, the last quote that I'll read here is in terms of Overwatch 2. I think is this Overwatch? I actually can't remember. What we've heard about Overwatch 2 or whatever it ends up being called is that it'll have a large PvE element. A couple of Blizzard people have compared it to Left 4 Dead.
Okay.
So I have a bit of a rant. I'll let you go first though, because I might take some time on this.
Okay. Well, basically, for me, Overwatch has never really interested me. I haven't played the game. I've watched it a little bit, and I felt like the observing in that game is a mess. Largely, it's impossible really to tell what's going on unless you play it, which is, it's kind of like Dota in a sense. So, I mean, peace be with that. If you understand the game very well, maybe you enjoy it more. But just as a viewer, it wasn't that appealing to me. If I play a shooter, I'd probably rather play something else like CSGO than Overwatch. Stop me if I say something really stupid right now, because I haven't played the game, like I said, so maybe I categorize things wrong.
No.
The thing that I'm excited about here is Diablo 4 for two reasons. First of all, because I love the fucking franchise. I think especially Diablo 1 has a really special place in my heart. I know for most people it's Diablo 2 that they played for countless hours and loved, and Lord of Destruction and all of this. I have pretty high hopes after seeing what happened with Diablo 3. First of all, the initial response, how it worked out, how they patched it and changed it to try to make it more appealing to the hardcore player base that used to love the other games. I have a feeling that they have learned from Diablo 3, and I have pretty high hopes for Diablo 4. And on top of that, obviously, does this mean they canceled Diablo Immortal, or are they still going to release that?
No,
because
that's being made by another company. That's the thing. They outsourced it. So that's fine.
Wow, okay.
Still on schedule.
Because clearly there's two things here. First of all, I'm excited about this game. Secondly, I think this is a good PR move toward the community, because Immortal was received extremely poorly and people hated it, the idea of that. So
don't you have a phone, syndereN? Jesus, buddy.
I do. I will probably not be playing Diablo Immortal on it though. But yeah, Diablo 4 is very welcome. I think it's something. If you think about franchises in PC gaming and what people would get excited about, it's got to be in the top 5 of titles that people be excited about. This, Warcraft 4. If there would be some sort of...
I used to be a huge Blizzard fanboy.
Blizzard has these amazing titles, and it's kind of like a little bit they have lost their way.
Ever since they were acquired by Activision.
Yeah, I hope this is step 1 to get back on track. All
right, syndereN,
I feel like okay, go on.
I need to
you
rant.
Go now.
This is a rant.
I'm ready.
Are you sure you're done?
Ready.
I'm actually going to do a different style of rant. I'm not going to get angry. I'm actually just going to be very calm.
I thought you were going to be disappointed.
It's
Okay.
gonna sound like I'm disappointed, which it should.
Okay.
I used to be
Okay.
a huge Blizzard fanboy. Warcraft was amazing. Like WC3, I played a shit ton of. Obviously, that's how I got introduced to Dota to begin with. And before that, Brood War was unbelievable. It's like probably the best balanced game of all time, honestly. Like you just can't beat that. Ever since, and I'll be honest, Diablo, I understand. Like I have no problem people liking it. I've never been an RPG guy. I just never enjoyed it. It's
Okay.
just not my thing. Ever since they were acquired by Activision, things have gone downhill. HOTS was an absolute pile of god awful shit. Hearthstone
No need to sugarcoat it.
Hearthstone is a very great concept, and I know people play it. I feel like they really, really made a mistake not focusing on esports for it, because I think it would be ruling the world right now. But it's not. Instead, they focus on HOTS and Overwatch, which we'll get to in a second. But StarCraft 2, another complete disaster. I mean, they have made it. It feels like every decision these guys have made has just been bad the last 10 years. I'm not saying canceling StarCraft 2 FPS is a bad move. It's whatever. Like, who knows? Maybe it was garbage as well. Diablo 4 is probably going to be good. Yes.
A quick intermission. You have not played World of Warcraft, right? Because that's obviously a huge. You have. That's also a big Blizzard flagship title.
Yeah. No. I just didn't mention it because.
Do you feel like the development, like you said, all the decisions they've made in the last 10 years or whatever have been bad? Do you feel like that is apparent in WoW too? Or when was the last time you played?
Dude, I played maybe a week of that game. I'm not
okay. Well, fair
MMO, any kind of RPG. Okay. I'm just not a fan of. I don't know what it is. I just
you did say that, so it's a bit surprising. Okay, yeah.
And I know I'm in the minority, so I'm not like downplaying it. Anyway, so the big thing I want to talk about is how Overwatch is just the worst. So there's this thing, and people have already made this comparison before, so it's not like this is a new thing. Do you know what the CGS is?
No.
I have to actually look up the actual name. Is it Championship Gaming? Yeah, Championship Gaming Series. This was an old tournament back in the day. I think early 2000s. Red Eye was actually a part of it as a commentator, I think. It was the first
2007 to 2008.
Okay,
I'm seeing here.
So it was the first major. You had to go back in time here. You had to forget about how the world is right now. Esports was not a big thing. Okay, a lot of people were playing games, but it was not like a mainstream not even remotely mainstream. Okay, this was the first major tournament that was sponsored by a huge company, which is DirecTV and Sky, like ginormous fucking companies. And they tried to force, and they were kind of before their time. I think they did some kind of cool stuff, but essentially what they did is they took a bunch of games like Counter-Strike was the big one, Source, and then a bunch of games like FIFA, I believe Dead or Alive, and a bunch of other games, and they drafted. Like, there would be organizations, kind of like what Overwatch has right now, organizations that would draft players, and then you would have these competitions where a team plays another team, and each respective game gives a certain amount of points for that match. So if FIFA, for example, you go 3-0. Okay, that's 3 points for your team. Counter-Strike, I can't remember how many rounds there were back then. Let's say you go 16-3, you get 13 points, the differential, essentially. Oh, no, you get 16 points, sorry. So they added up those, and that's how the competition was. It was an interesting concept, but the execution was really poor. First and foremost, they just added a bunch of random games. Like, they don't go together at all. Like, you can't treat all these games similarly, right? And the flagship game at the time was Counter-Strike. And this is going to sound like I'm bashing. I love DJ Wheat. I love Fatality. They knew nothing about Counter-Strike, and you're putting them in as the main commentators for this flagship game of your huge tournament. This is like having me and syndereN cast League of Legends. It just won't work. Okay, it just does not work. It was a disaster, and it actually it set the esports scene back a few years because of how disastrous.
That one event.
That is a shit ton of money, and just think of it this way: this is not a mainstream thing at all. People don't believe in it. Somebody takes a chance, they lose all their money essentially, and how does that inspire confidence at all? Right?
Well, who's to blame though?
I mean, I think the way that
you'd say it was the organization, right? Like, not the people that were commentators or on CS.
No, of course it's not. I mean, it's the people that put them in position to fail. You could have picked the best casters
in the world on CS, and it probably still wouldn't have been successful.
It would have been better.
The format there.
Well, it's a mixture of things, but the point here's the point though. Okay, the point is that was before its time. Maybe that would work now. Who knows? Overwatch. Let's get to this. This is where you'll see some similarities. So you have kind of the same Overwatch League system where you have these teams and they're drafting players and all that nonsense, which is great. I actually like that idea a lot. The problem is they get all these investors all excited, right? NBA teams, like hundreds of millions of dollars, okay?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of money. This is way more than CGS back in the day. And you're investing in a game, by the way, that had just started. You cannot force a game to be an esport. That is the number one rule. If you've been in esports long enough, you know this, and this is why the outside investors don't understand. They just want to get in on what's quote unquote popular. I want to get this demographic, this 13 to 22-year-old that can spend X amount of money in however many months of the year on because they're playing games. They're not spending money on other stuff. So we need to invest in this business. The problem is you can't force a game to be an esport. Overwatch is not a good esport. I'm sorry. It's not watchable. Counter-Strike is a great esport. That is the difference between good and bad, in my opinion. And I feel like and don't get me wrong, I'm hoping it works out. Out.
It'll be good for esports if it works, right?
Exactly. If it fails, it will set us back again. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, all these investors are never going to be interested in this again. You know, that's kind of my main issue. But the last thing I'll say...
Okay, sorry, go on.
Why make Overwatch 2? Why can't you just update Overwatch? Like, is it that groundbreaking that you need to make another game? Like, do you need to relaunch this failed league?
I don't know enough about this game to say that. Perhaps, like, with what you're saying, this might have something to do with the investors. Like, maybe a big portion of or a large part of the reason that they're making a second game is to report back to the investors about the development of the game, right? Like, we have this new title coming out that is an extension of the previous one, and maybe that just sounds better to investors than we have updated the game. We're patching it. Like, we're making this new thing that, since you are already an investor in Overwatch, you can transfer your team over or whatever, and maybe that sounds better and gives them more money. That's possible. Now, what was I going to say? I think that's everything you talked about with this Overwatch League. I agree with, at least for the most part. From my perspective, the game is super hard to watch. And again, I don't want to state like absolutes, like it's a bad game or a bad esport, because I don't play it. So I don't want to, I can't say that for sure, okay? But to me, even though the production value looks really cool and they're doing a great job at setting it up and running it professionally, it didn't catch my attention very much. I've watched it like once, and I tuned out after 5 minutes because I felt like, what the fuck is going on, But the thing that should be talked about with this is the whole franchising idea, because I see some people talking about this in esports as like the devil, and other people say it's a really good thing. And I think what you need to remember in this, the reason there's so much money flooding into this is that the investors are interested because of franchising. It's because they can own part in a project. That is what is interesting to them. Is that they have this amount of money that they're investing into the game. Let's say you compare it to Dota 2, right? You could invest into Overwatch, where you can own a franchise that is part of a league, or in Dota 2, you can invest into an organization that's a multi-game org that maybe has Dota 2 as one of the games, but you don't have guaranteed participation. In Dota 2, it's always performance-based. Will you qualify to this and this major? If you don't, your exposure is, let's be honest, pretty fucking bad. That's just Dota. If you're not at the big events, you're not there.
No, that's a great point.
That's something you get in the Overwatch League. Well, you invest into this team, you pay X amount of $1 million, but every week your team is playing. You can grow a fan base. You can sell merchandise. They have the whole idea of having it based on, I think it's states that have their teams in Overwatch or something like this.
Cities.
Or cities, yeah. So, you can like build on the local, interest in the game, and kind of, I would agree with the word forcing, that it feels a bit forced. But I think some of the ideas behind it are very interesting.
And
I think this is a good way of making money and flow into esports.
I'm a traditional sports person. So, like, the idea of franchising makes a lot of sense to me. I just feel like you force it on a game that shouldn't be put in that spot to begin with.
That's fair enough. But the question is, what can we learn from this? Like, let's say it fails, okay? Let's say this doesn't go well. And does that mean I just don't want the conclusion to be franchising failed. It needs to be because the game failed. Because if franchising can be good, maybe we can take the positive from this and maybe implement it to an extent in other titles. And then the question is, well, will the investors want to do it if they just had this
Well, I
flop,
mean,
right?
franchising, you can hate
So
League all you want, but franchising has been successful in League, right?
yeah, it has.
I mean, I think they're too
And
forceful on some of their rules. I think it's kind of it's the opposite end of the spectrum of Valve, for example, but
yeah,
some of it's good for sure.
yeah,
Uh,
it feels like there's like a golden middle ground where Valve is very player centric and League is very org
so
centric. And I think there's a way to merge those two styles because I think organizations in esports are good, and I
mhm.
think franchises are good to
Here's the
have.
thing, and
It's
this is what worries me, and maybe it's worrying over nothing. This is a lot of money coming in by investors
yeah,
that do not know what they're doing, by the way. And I have experience with this.
mm-hmm,
I have actually physically talked to two NBA teams. I will not name them.
mm-hmm,
I've consulted them, in fact, on matters such as this. They have zero idea what is going on. Zero.
yeah,
And they're just trusting people that are in the scene, and maybe they're just listening to the wrong people. They have absolutely no idea what they're doing. They're putting a lot of money in this, and I 100% guarantee you there will not be a return on investment anytime soon. Like, this is
mm-hmm.
literally a decade down the road if they're ever gonna. And I don't know if they're okay with that. I have no clue, but it is what it is.
Yeah. The slots are very expensive. They're very
Yes.
expensive in League too, but that seems to be a bit more of a proven concept at least.
Mm-hmm.
Than Overwatch, which seems a little bit, like you said, like kind of forced in a way. Like we're gonna make this title, and before we even know if it's gonna be a hit, you guys are just gonna put $100 million, okay? Yeah, that's that's definitely I 100% agree with that. But yeah, I would be curious to see. Like, it's really interesting what happens in the next 5 to 10 years because I personally think franchising will get increased, even if this fails. I still think franchising will move
I'm fine
forward.
with that. I'm actually fine with that.
And the thing that I don't know, I'm trying to understand what's so negative about it because I know some people hate it. They say like franchising is the worst thing that can happen to esports because then it's not about the players anymore, but then there's like these business people that start taking control. I feel like that's part of the argument, at least, that there will be way too much power resting with these people. And then it's not really esports anymore because now it's just these like big franchises, like let's say NFL teams or whatever. But then you have an example like Complexity that we have now, which was bought by, what was it? Was the Houston Texans?
The
Uh,
Dallas Cowboys.
Dallas Cowboys, yeah, close enough. We it's just two states, right? Whatever. Europe, NA, same thing. Yeah, so the Dallas Cowboys invested big time into Complexity. I have not seen any negative repercussions of that yet.
Mm-hmm.
Just more player promotion, more money flowing in, more titles that they're involved with, and
It feels
perhaps
less.
that's positive franchising. I don't know. Maybe this is a success story, and it could go really bad. But
I mean,
I
that's a
just I don't
long
know.
storyline with Complexity as well. They have a lot of history, but I think the thing that
Yeah,
people don't like is that, like, you and I can go out and make an org right now, and it could be
yeah,
successful, and we can make a little bit
mm-hmm.
of money maybe. Uh, when franchising comes in, we don't exist anymore. That's some of the people have issue with that, which is true to an extent. I'm not saying franchising is the way to go, by the way. I don't want to make that clear. Uh, I don't know. I just think that
Mm-hmm.
these are too small of sample sizes, and like it's like putting it's an interesting idea put in a situation that is set up to fail. That's how I feel about it
Uh-huh.
for Overwatch
I think that's a
specifically.
pretty good way of putting it. I'm trying to think again. Like I'm thinking about like comparing because obviously in the U.S. franchising is huge. Okay, like in NFL and NBA, all of this, like all your big sports have massive franchising. But I'm thinking this isn't an American only thing, right? I feel like franchising in European sports is also huge. Like in
Mhm.
football, franchises are like all the sports that have massive viewership that are very successful that sustain throughout the years seem to largely be franchise driven. At least that's where a lot of the profit is, right? Like, is
Mhm.
there any sport in the world that is massively profitable that does not have franchising?
See,
Like that's really big. I mean,
that's a
profit is one
slippery
thing.
slope.
That's just if we're talking money, right? It's if we only care about the money, which is not my point here. It's more
No, I know what
about
you
the
mean.
sustainability and the future prospects of esports in general. Is it a bad thing? Because is there success stories other elsewhere where we can be like, thank God we didn't get franchising in sport X because that would have ruined it. Like, do we
Any
have
major
examples
sport,
of that?
well, any major sports can have franchising.
Yeah.
But
So
the thing that I want to make sure that people know, and I think this is kind of a slippery slope on your end. We do just because it works in traditional sports doesn't mean it will work.
Oh,
in esports
I'm 100%
as well,
in agreement
right?
with that. I am in agreement with that. Yes. I'm trying, like,
Like,
I
I
don't
think
understand
the
this
way that I look
in
at it,
depth
syndereN,
enough, so it's more of a conversation. I'm not
no,
like
I
making
yeah.
I'm trying to, you know, have a conversation going because I don't know either.
I like
I'm
looking at
just trying,
traditional
like, maybe I'm
sports
too
as
optimistic. That's
like I
possible.
look at traditional sports and I try to take things from it that might make sense. I don't force it, right?
Yeah.
And it's only a matter of like at some point we're going to realize whether franchising is the correct way to go for esports or not. And maybe it's game dependent as well, because right now it's technically game dependent, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's an interesting topic.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I mean,
who knows
yeah, I feel like we're kind of on the same page here. I feel the same way about it. Like, I don't really know either. I have a positive outlook on it. Like, I feel like it could be good, but it could also, you know, I could just be totally wrong on how this
Right.
will impact the games. I don't have the view that it's the devil. I guess that's what I'm getting at here. I don't see what's the total disaster scenario where it ruins everything that some people seem to have. And I also don't have these, like, I don't have the glasses on that this is perfect and this is just, we just implement this everywhere and we're in fucking esports heaven. You know, I'm not naive like that either. I just feel like there's something about it that is appealing and
No, there's
interesting.
definitely
At
has
least.
some appealing. Yeah, I agree. All right.
Okay.
So that's all the serious subject or all the serious topic. We're at an hour,
Next
12
up, do
minutes.
you believe in aliens?
Yes, that is our last topic of the
I
day.
love this show. I love it.
You ruined
man,
it,
these
by the way.
transitions are so fucking good.
Yeah,
no, man, I made it.
No, this transition, it felt very abrupt. I won't lie. This time it was.
Would you say
very
forced?
Yeah, it's a little forced. But that's because we went
that's
over
great.
time, and I didn't have a good segue. But yes, you did say it, syndereN. The last subject of the day. Do you believe in aliens?
Let's define it first. What are
Okay.
aliens? Any life form somewhere else in the universe.
Okay.
Is that what you mean by aliens? Like,
we can do
form.
both. We can do both intelligent and any life form.
Yes, I do.
To both.
Because I feel like, just realistically, if you think about, I don't know if you want to put this into probability or whatever, but if you think about how extremely big the universe is and how tiny, tiny, tiny we are, the chance that this hasn't happened literally anywhere else,
right?
It's hard to imagine that it wouldn't happen somewhere. But it is interesting that we haven't found any, right?
Like
but I do believe it exists out there. I do.
Things
just
that create life for us, obviously it could be different on other planets, but it's very unlikely, like ridiculously unlikely that we are here today, correct? But considering how many planets there are, like literally infinite, right?
How big the universe is.
There has to be, of course.
Like, so, just to give an example, right? Let's say it's like 1 in a million, which a lot of people consider very unlikely. If it was 1 in a million, there would be life forms everywhere in the universe.
Everywhere.
If it was 1 in a million.
Agreed.
So it's like we're talking 1 in a, I don't know, whatever power to the whatever. So
we both agree on that, so that's not interesting. How about this?
Okay.
Do you believe intelligent aliens have visited Earth?
No.
Why?
Because I feel like they would have made some... I mean, technically they could have made an impact that we just don't know about.
Like the pyramids?
But I feel like...
That's everyone's favorite one is the pyramids.
They might have extinguished the dinosaurs. Like, who knows?
It's a hard one.
It just it feels unlikely. Yeah, because it really depends, right? Let's imagine there's an alien race that's way more developed than us, and they go to Earth and it's like, this is fucking boring. Because there's like these other aliens nearby that are way more interesting, so we want to talk and work with them instead. These guys are fucking... It's like...
We're apes. We're goddamn apes.
No, not apes. Not even apes. Consider the way we treat ants, okay? Like, let's say...
I've heard this
if we went
before.
into space and we found a planet that had ants, it would be really interesting because it was life. But let's imagine we went into space and there was a planet with ants only, and then there was like thousands of other planets that we found with intelligent life.
Yeah.
I feel like we would just not give a fuck about the planet with ants, right?
Yep.
So if we're that stupid compared to everyone else, like, maybe they went here and there's like idiots, you know? Like, they all have like thousands of IQs in their planets, and we are sitting here with like whatever, you know?
So I used to watch these shows that talk about alien life, right? Because they're just interesting. Even if you don't believe it, they're interesting. So things like... some of them are really stupid, by the way. Like the pyramid one, I think is really... Because people don't know, to this day, they don't know how the pyramids were actually built, because it required things that just didn't exist back then, is very interesting to think about how they did that. But
Mm-hmm.
was it aliens? I don't know. The other one, there's a South American civilization. I can't remember which. I'm sure the people listening will know if they Google it.
Mm-hmm.
That this was a really stupid one as well, because you know how we envision aliens, like these guys with big heads, right?
Yeah.
So these some South American civilization or Native American civilization, they would put rings on babies' heads and leave it there their whole lives so that their heads would elongate to look like what we consider aliens to be. But my point is that doesn't make that doesn't make any sense. Like we don't think that aliens look like that because of them today, right? Because we just made it up. So that one's really weird. And of course, there's Roswell. You've heard a lot about that, the New Mexico crash, which is a lot of iffy stuff about that. And actually, recently,
I have actually not heard anything about that.
All right. Well, I was worried you'd say that because I actually don't know the story of Roswell. Just that there was a crash
excellent.
in
Good
New
talk.
Mexico that supposedly aliens were at. But recently, there's been some talk of the Navy in the U.S., of course. Navy, not Navy SEALs, just people that have been in the like high officials have sworn that they have seen UFOs, which doesn't mean aliens. UFO technically means just unidentified flying object. Could be anything.
It could be a bird.
Right. Well, no. They have some videos.
If you haven't identified it as a bird, then it could be a bird.
Oh, that's
it's
okay.
just
Technically,
a
that's
flying
true. Yes.
object that's not identified.
Yes.
Well, then it's about whether we want to objectify birds or not. But I feel like that's a different talk.
Right. So they would see like these, like they're flying in their planes and they see a light. Okay. And this is going to be a little difficult to explain for the audio only people. That would go as like it would be keeping up with them, and then it would suddenly change movements in a way that is literally impossible with any technology, even in the next like 50 years, if we best case scenario. So their theory is that it has to be aliens, right?
And there is no way this could be like some sort of natural phenomenon that they're experiencing with like light reflecting off things.
Well, I don't think it's just the light. It was like a not a saucer, but it's a physical
what
object.
What if light reflected on a bird?
Boy, oh boy, that's one fast bird, bro. I don't know.
It was a bird.
So you do not believe that aliens have ever visited Earth? So this is my only thing. I don't know the answer to this question. I don't know what I believe. I'm in that scenario right now because like I really want to believe it, and most of me does not. But there's a chance that like, what if you're ridiculously think of a race that is so evolved that they know where everything is.
Yeah.
Maybe they visited, like you said, they don't give a shit. Maybe they've helped us actually evolve in some way we don't know about. Maybe they're the reason that life exists on this planet. They're the ones that put the bacteria
like a
in the
little herb
ocean.
garden. We're like a little herb garden for the aliens. They just went and planted us.
The beginning
and then
of
they forgot about us.
the beginning of Men in Black, the first one, or maybe it's the end, where it shows that the entire universe is just a marble that some huge being is playing with. And that's how I honestly think of us. I think we're so insignificant and
entirely possible. It's really fascinating. Like, I don't know, man. It's one of those questions that's really hard to answer, right?
Well, don't answer it here because I want to talk about that on another podcast, by the way.
Okay, fair enough.
Definitely.
We're going to go way more in depth on the aliens.
Well, not aliens, but how life exists, things like that.
Okay.
More spiritual / religious, potentially.
Okay.
Continue your thought.
Fair enough.
Finish your thought.
No, it's fine. We'll save it for another time.
Okay, excellent. That is the end of this episode then, syndereN. Are you happy with how it went?
I think we did a really good job. I think it's... Honestly, if I were to rate this episode, I'd rate it 5 stars.
5 out of 6 stars. I agree.
I don't know out of how many, but 5 sounds good.
Excellent. All right, good luck at Starladder, friend.
Good job. Thank you. I'm going to need a lot of luck to commentate.
Are you paneling or commentating?
I appreciate it. I think both.
Okay.
The ratios aren't really decided yet, but we'll see. We'll see what I'm going to end up doing. However they want to make it work. We'll see.
Sounds good. I will try to watch it. Try my best to root you on. All right.
What
thanks,
time
guys.
is that for you?
I don't know.
The evening games will be okay for you, I guess, right?
Yes.
I suppose.
Probably.
Or maybe. I don't even know.
My
You might
schedule's
watch
all
the
over
morning
place.
games and then go to bed. That's
Yeah,
more likely, actually.
That is more.
That's what,
That's
you're
what
gonna
I do every time. That's true.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway.
Okay.
Thanks for
Cool.
watching, guys. Until next time, SUNSfan and syndereN signing out. Goodbye.
Bye.